wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you very much for lending me your time and your ear and listening into another video from me. And this time I'm going to talk a little bit about censorship and localization. Now, a game that just released recently, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which was Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, what we knew it as for the longest time. That game has been censored a bit. And also another intelligent systems game, Fire Emblem Fates, kind of had some censorship things go on with that. Now, from what I understand, both the games, no matter what localization you buy, they're still great. People enjoy them. They like them. So, putting it this way, while I don't endorse censorship, I do understand its purpose. And there are just some things that are going to be changed no matter what, because different areas, different regions respond differently to certain things. In Japan, they're far more sexually free than we are over here in the US. In the US, people are more like sexual deviants than they are sexually free. Whereas over here, violence is way more acceptable than to be sexy or sexual or sensual in any way. Whereas in Japan, violence is not as commonly accepted. So that's why when you think about it, like a lot of animes don't last very long. Most of the time, it's the really violent ones. It's either they're really violent, or if there is some sort of violence in it, it's not gratuitous. And I don't think people understand that. Hell, in Australia, fuck, their censorship is way worse than ours. Way worse. And I would hate to see what a game like Tokyo Mirage Sessions has to go through to be released in fucking Australia. Because that's some shit I don't want to see. I don't even want to know. And even worse, the people don't realize it, but the censorship of certain games is based on what rating they want the ESRB to give for that particular game. And we have no understanding as to how the ESRB or any of the rating systems, like the PEGI rating system in Europe, we don't have any idea how those work. Like, all we know is that they rate the game based upon its content. They don't rate it based upon its perspective-driven content. It's based upon its visual content. But we still don't understand how they run it. Like, how many things are acceptable and then how many things aren't acceptable. Like, or is there a certain number of infringements that you have to be under to be able to get a certain rating? We don't know that. Now, granted, there's things like with language and certain things that can be changed that I would rather see get the story that the game developers wanted to tell. And sometimes that doesn't come across as clearly. Like Streets of Rage 3, one of my favorite fucking games of all time. Here in the US, they completely changed the damn story. And like, to me, the Japanese story is way better. Way better. But people didn't bitch and complain about censorship back then, when we should have been saving the not the president of the United States, but you were supposed to be going to the White House. They changed it to City Hall over here. You're supposed to be saving like a Russian. I know he was Russian. I'm pretty sure he was Russian. But you were supposed to be saving like a Russian emissary or something like that. But they changed it to the chief of police over here. So to me, like, worrying about the game being censored to not enjoy the game for what it is, because the game itself, what you're playing, is still the same. Hell, they took Ash out for the US release. Ash was like that big, tall, strong, gay dude that was in Bare Knuckle 3. He didn't make it to Streets of Rage 3. He was cut out because there was a perception about gay people in the U.S. There's still a bit of a bad perception about gay people in the U.S. It's a little bit more. It's not as bad now, but it's definitely still bad. There's a lot of things that change when it comes when it gets localized in different areas. Hell, and like areas in the Middle East, they go through a shitload more changes to put a game out over there. Excuse me. But people don't realize that. People don't understand that. But like, just different cultures have different perspectives on certain things, and unfortunately, the cultures don't allow for an artistry to stay the same. It just doesn't. I wish it did, because I would more thoroughly enjoy a game if it was at its purest form. But the problem is, I don't know every language in the world, so I've got to deal with whatever localization brings about. And to me, yes, that is a bit annoying when there are dialogue changes that don't reflect what the original intended purpose was, and they just outright change something completely, or things are just completely removed. That annoys me. But at the same time, I'm not going to let it completely destroy my enjoyment. Just putting it this way. If I had known about censorship and stuff back then when I was younger, a lot of games I wouldn't have played. If I went with the mentality of, this is a good game, this is an interesting game, but things have been changed, so I'm not going to enjoy that game. I'm not going to play that game. Hell, the biggest issues I've heard of people having with censorship as of late is more about outfits that female characters wear. They're mad that certain outfits are removed. But it's not like they're taking a whole character out of the game like Sega did with Streets of Rage 3. It's not like they're changing the whole story of the game like was done with Streets of Rage 3. That stuff isn't happening. Like, sure, there are annoying dialogue changes that don't quite reflect the original dialogue. Sometimes that can't be done because there just aren't words that are comparable among languages. So you have to figure out something to put in place to that. And I know that pisses people off. I know it does. It annoys the shit out of me too. But you also have to think about animes and movies and things like that get localized, or they get their own version translated over for different audiences. Hell, Dragon Ball Z, if half of these people who are pissed off about dialogue changes and translation changes as far as localization goes, half of these people wouldn't have fucking watched Dragon Ball Z, and it wouldn't have become as big of a franchise as it is today if they allowed, it's not exactly the same as the original. But guess what? If everyone dwelled on those dialogue changes and things, and they dwelled on every single thing that was different from the original American localization to the original Japanese dub, we wouldn't have gotten the Dragon Ball Z Kai series to happen, which corrected a lot of things that were changed before. It wouldn't have happened at all. So there is hope further down the road. But what we have to do is support the things that we actually want, but we also have to make them aware of the problems that we have with those changes. Like in certain situations, like with a game like Fatal Frame with the sexy outfits removed, I don't care, because those girls are underage anyway, so that doesn't bother me. It hurts me in no way. I could care less. Same thing with Xenoblade Chronicles X. There were a couple outfits that were changed because of the character's age, and over here, that's a no-no. Like, that's something people will call you a fucking pervert for looking at. Yeah, teenagers might get away with it, but if you're an adult who plays that game, you'll be looked at like you're a fucking pervert. Like, oh, you actually play that game? You know that there's a scantily clad teenage girl in there? That's how people think. The general public thinks that way. They might not know shit about the game other than that, oh, there's a teenage girl in a bikini in there, and it's barely covering anything. It's basically exposing all her tits and ass. Why do you think that cover for the anniversary of the Killing Joke got squashed so quickly? It wasn't because comic book fans were mad about it. It was because of the people outside of comic books dictated to DC Comics that was unacceptable without knowing the story. And sadly, that's how the shit works. I'd rather it not work that way because, again, I want the artistry to be the thing on the front that people see. Now that to me, that was bullshit what DC did. But that was also their choice. They pulled the cover. It's not my choice to decide what these companies do. Like, if a lot of you are so against this stuff, start writing in letters. Start sending in emails, but not being pissed off, not being mad, not being overly agitated. Respectfully do this. Just explain. Like, I'm a fan of your work, and I've been a long time fan of your work. And I personally do not appreciate these changes happening because of people who aren't actually interested in seeing you thrive. Something like that. Like, but not going off the deep end, getting pissed off, sending angry threats to people. That shit has to stop. It has to stop. We've talked about how we want games to grow up, but we need to grow up as people in order for the games to grow with us. And I'm not talking about aging. I'm talking about actually growing up as a person, actually realizing that your actions have consequences and that they lead to certain things happening. But with that, I'm done. If you're so hung up on censorship, don't play anything localized at all, ever. Because there's always going to be a change in there. Some changes you may not agree with. Some you might. But don't ever buy localized. Learn the native language of the product and get that version. That's all you can do. But that's it. Thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears up for more of my stuff. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.